From a mysterious UFO to a potential pyramid buried under the snow, plus ancient fossils that have shocked scientists. Here are 10 mysterious discoveries straight from Antarctica. Number 10. Antarctic UFO. In Antarctica, there's a UFO mystery. What appears to be a troop of military vehicles hidden in the snow has been spotted using Google Earth. The images on Google Earth show what seemed to be the crash site of an unidentified object being guarded by 4 equally unidentifiable objects, looking a lot like army tanks. Fun fact, these are actually known as UGOs, or unidentified ground objects. While they may have been flying at one point, they're now firmly grounded. But just what on earth could this image be showing us? There's a huge skid mark in the snow as if the object impacted the ground and then slid to a stop. And it looks like army vehicles went to intercept it. Even more mysterious is that images taken just 2 months prior showed the crash, but no military vehicles. The vehicles must have arrived later, though nobody can quite understand why they were left in the snow for everyone to find on Google Earth. Shouldn't they have gone back to wherever they came from after their standoff with the unidentified object? Then there's the actual scale to worry about. Judging by the size of the objects on Google Earth, each supposed tank would be over 7 feet in length, far more gargantuan than anything ever created by human hands. Plus, there are no tracks in the snow to show how the vehicles got there. So far, nobody's been able to explain anything about this strange Antarctic mystery. Do you think there could be extraterrestrials or UFOs in Antarctica? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe if you're new here. Number 9. Hundreds of corpses. There are hundreds of corpses frozen in Antarctica that scientists have yet to discover. According to Martha Henriquez, who worked on the Frozen Continent series for the BBC, many of the people who die in Antarctica are left behind, and their bodies become buried in the snow, never to be found again. Some are discovered several decades after perishing. Some are even found hundreds of years later. Antarctica is the coldest and windiest place on our planet, making it a pretty bad place to lose a body. Take the Terra Nova expedition, which went out between 1910 and 1913. The British explorer Robert Falcon Scott and his team of 4 men wanted to reach the South Pole before anyone else. Unfortunately, when they got there, they realized a Norwegian explorer had beaten them to the punch. So Scott and the rest of the team turned and went back. They all died inside their tent only 11 miles from the nearest food depot. 2 of their bodies were never uncovered, but 2 of them were found a few months later. Because the conditions were so miserable, there wasn't much that could be done for the bodies, and so they were left behind. But here's where things get really interesting. Trying to find the corpses of the expedition today would be a logistical nightmare because they have undoubtedly traveled miles from where they had originally dropped dead. This is because the ice surface of Antarctica shifts with time, causing displacement. Those bodies are probably lost forever. Number 8. Extraterrestrial amino acids. Astrobiologists working from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center recently found a diversity of extraterrestrial amino acids inside of a meteorite. The meteorite was taken from the Nansen ice field in Antarctica by researchers from Belgium and Japan back in 2012. The meteorite is called Asuka 12236 and was found to be packed full of amino acids such as glycine, isovaline, glutamic, and alanine. If you're not sure what amino acids are, they're basically the building blocks of proteins. We need amino acids to survive. But just what exactly are they doing in space rocks? Well, it's a bit of a mystery. Nobody's really sure how these organics evolve on things like asteroids where most meteorites come from. And yet there's a whole collection of space rocks rich in carbon known as CM chondrites, just like this Antarctic meteorite. Researchers believe that by studying these amino acids more completely and understanding what they're doing inside of seemingly lifeless rocks hurled to our planet through space, we will unlock the secrets of the universe and maybe even the secret to life itself. Number 7. Mysterious ice ship. A giant and very mysterious ship that appears to either be made out of ice or blanketed in snow was recently discovered in Antarctica, allegedly over 400 feet in length. The ship was spotted by someone using Google Earth. It was found roughly 100 miles off the coast of Antarctica, sitting on an iceberg. Others who saw the giant ice ship were quick to point out its striking resemblance to a cruise liner. It really does look like some kind of cruise vessel that would be giving tours around the Greek islands. It even has a bunch of window shapes running across its hull, as if viewing windows for personal cabins. But the big question is, why would the giant boat be lying sideways on an iceberg? It doesn't make any sense. One of the most reasonable explanations is that the ship was actually wrecked and the ice simply grew over it. It could have been a vessel used in battle during World War II that got lost and crashed in Antarctica. It could have been part of a secret Nazi base on the continent. The truth is that nobody knows and no officials have come forward to identify what the bizarre ship is or how it came to be resting on the center of an iceberg. And to be totally honest, we probably won't know the origins of the mysterious ship until the iceberg melts and the ship slips off. Number 6. the world's largest iceberg. Speaking of icebergs, the largest iceberg in the entire world has just slipped off the Run ice shelf in Antarctica. But slipped off is a pretty gentle word. The iceberg really broke off, becoming a floating piece of ice about half the size of Puerto Rico. The iceberg is known scientifically as A76, and according to the New York Times, it's separated naturally from Antarctica. It measures 1,668 square miles, making it a bit larger than the last big iceberg to break off from the shelf, A23A, which formed in 1986 and had a total area of 1,500 square miles. As for the biggest iceberg in recorded history, that was B15, which broke off the Ross Ice Shelf, still Antarctica but a totally different area, in 2000 and measured over 4,200 square miles, over twice the size of A76. And before everyone starts freaking out about climate change, scientists are saying that the separation was natural and may not have had anything to do with the climate. They also say the iceberg won't add to the rise of the sea level while it melts because it's floating ice and already displaces the same volume of water. It's like ice melting in your cup. Melting ice can't make your cup overflow. Christopher A. Schumann from the University of Maryland compared the new iceberg to a fingernail clipping, saying Antarctica is basically just getting a manicure. Number 5. Fossilized sea monster. A large and terrifying monster has been discovered in Antarctica. It's what scientists are calling an elasmosaur, and is further proof that Antarctica was once a thriving ecosystem filled with dinosaurs, flying creatures, and sea monsters. The elasmosaur navigated the oceans during the Cretaceous period alongside countless dinos. The fossil discovered by scientists on a small and desolate island off the coast of the Antarctic Peninsula belonged to the heaviest elasmosaur currently on record. This beast weighed over 15 tons. Even more amazing, the elasmosaur is one of the only complete reptile fossils from ancient times ever found on Antarctica. But just what was an elasmosaur other than a large and terrifying reptile? According to National Geographic, elasmosaurs were part of the plesiosaur family, representing the largest sea creatures that lived about 66 million years ago. The creature looked a lot like a modern manatee mixed with a giraffe and an anaconda, with a little bit of Loch Ness Monster thrown in for good measure. They had 4 flippers and could probably grow to be over 40 feet in length. And considering how big the animal was, it would have needed a lot of food to eat, suggesting that before the huge extinction event 66 million years ago, the area around Antarctica had been teeming with enough wildlife to keep a large population of predatory elasmosaurs happy, with lots and lots of meat. What do you think about this incredible prehistoric beast? Let me know in the comments down below. Number 4. Snow Pyramid. There just might be a giant pyramid covered with snow in Antarctica. This is either a new and amazing discovery or a tasteless hoax. The issue is that the pyramid was discovered using Google Earth. The good news is that it definitely looks like a massive pyramid. The object seems to be made of some kind of black obsidian, with its point and 2 of its sides exposed from the snow. The other 2 sides are still covered. But that's another thing. The pyramid has 4 sides that look identical to the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it would be a pretty difficult thing for nature to try and mimic. As you may already know, nature doesn't really build in symmetry. At least not when it comes to random rock formations in the middle of Antarctica. This thing clearly looks as if it were made by intelligent hands. The photos of the pyramid are baffling people all around the world, and not a single mainstream scientist has come forward to either debunk or confirm what we all can see is obviously a pyramid. The issue is that nobody knows who could have possibly built the pyramid or when. It's obviously quite old. We do know that there may have been ancient civilizations living in Antarctica upwards of 10,000 years ago. It could be a leftover ruin. One of the more outlandish claims is that the pyramid is only one part of the lost city of Atlantis, which is actually on the Antarctic continent but has never been explored because nobody has known where to look. Number 3. Mysterious photographs. In 1915, an expedition from New Zealand to Antarctica known as the Ross Sea Party tried to establish a supply depot for explorers. Unfortunately, they had some issues with their ship. 6 men ended up stranded on Antarctica with almost no hope of being saved. They spent 3 years struggling just to stay alive before finally being rescued. 98 years after the harrowing ordeal, traces of their time spent in Antarctica were finally found. It happened while conservators were restoring one of the supply huts the party had squatted in. What they discovered were 22 unprocessed negatives inside of a box. They had been left there by the Ross Sea Party. After nearly 100 years, the negatives were still viable. Photographs were developed using the negatives, telling an eerie tale of their journey gone wrong. The photographs didn't show any dramatic moments. They didn't photograph anybody practicing cannibalism or something frightening, but the still shots are fascinating nonetheless, showing the men on the ship, presumably before disaster struck. So far, these are some of the oldest modern relics found on the continent. Number 2. Antarctica itself. One of the most interesting discoveries ever made in Antarctica was Antarctica itself. It happened 200 years ago, and depending on who you ask, The answer to who found Antarctica is a little different. A Russian expedition in 1820 may have spotted Antarctica first. Either that, or it may have been a British expedition 3 days later. At the time, explorers were hunting for what was then known as Terra Australis Incognita, translated to unknown southern land. Everyone knew there was something at the bottom of the world, they just didn't know what. James Cook searched for it for between 1772 and 1775. He came up empty-handed. At the time, he claimed that it was so risky to try and find the mysterious land at the end of the world that nobody would ever venture farther than he had, and that the lands would never be explored. According to National Geographic, James Cook had come within 80 miles of Antarctica's coast. Antarctica was finally spotted in 1820 by both Russians and the British. The Russians were technically the first ones to find Antarctica and see it with their own eyes, but the first person who ever stepped foot on Antarctica was an American named John Davis in 1821. So who was first, the man who spotted it or the one who touched it? Number 1. Proof of mass extinction. Christian Sitter, the curator of vertebrate paleontology at the Burke Museum, recently spent 2 months in Antarctica looking for fossils. What he discovered is proof that there was a mass extinction prior to 250 million years ago. During his work in Antarctica, Christian found the fossils of animals that may have been closely related to reptiles. He also found fossils belonging to distant relatives of amphibians. But even more shocking is that he claimed to have discovered fossils of animals that are distant relatives of mammals. Some of these animals were apparently digging burrows back in the Triassic period. In some places he found footprints, and in some places he found plant material. But what does all this information mean? It means that there was a very active ecosystem on the continent of Antarctica a 250 million years ago. There also may have been an unknown extinction event that caused them all to die. Still, researchers don't know what species many of these fossils belong to, or how relatives of mammals were found when mammals didn't start evolving until after the death of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. It's a total mystery, and one that paleontologists are working hard to solve. Would you visit Antarctica if given the chance? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for all the best videos right here on American Eye.